why we're here at 4:30.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. It's the Water Utility Board meeting of July 1st, 2025. We have members of the board, myself, Steve Crandall, and Lee Hansen, member, and Boyd Sidaway, and Frank Young on Zoom. So we do have a quorum. Council Liaison, Kirsten Merrill is here, and Taylor Ellis is here as well, and Mayor Rock is being a spectator with us today. I added one other thing to the agenda that I forgot to put the standing agenda item, an update from Council Liaison. So I added that to that. And we have a motion to approve the agenda
As modified.
as modified.
I would like to modify it some more, if possible. I did get the liaison report, and in that, I hope we can talk somewhat about meter replacement, water master plan, and chlorination. And then we should probably add something an item just to finalize what we maybe come up with here to send back via our two liaisons to the town council. Would that be a reasonable thing to have, kind of a wrap up at the end of what we'd like to hear from the town council or send to the town council?
I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yes, please.
And then, I don't know, I've always liked a miscellaneous kind of section. If anybody on the water board has something on their mind that we could also bring up at the end. I mean, the town council does that with canvassing the board or the council members for their input at the end of the meeting. So I was thinking.
Okay. We can add that to the agenda.
Okay,
Motion to approve.
Motion so approved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I don't know what the proposal is yet. I wasn't here for the whole.
Just approving the agenda.
Yes, aye.
Okay. Thank you. Finally got all the minutes prepared and all the recordings received from about 3 meetings, March 27th, May 20th, and May 27th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Before we approve that, is there a chance that we can also discuss, there's some items mentioned in the minutes, and I'd kind of like to hear whether or not they're followed through. Is that reasonable to have a discussion of the minutes and then
Okay.
approve them individually instead of just
What should we
saying they're all
follow
good?
up on?
Pardon me?
What should we follow up on?
Well, on the 27th meeting, we talked about tank volume. Tank will need to be measured in order to estimate the accuracy of the input meter. Has that been done? If not, when do you anticipate it would be done? Something to that nature.
I think that was supposed to be done when the divers were back.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we
divers
sent
been back?
divers
Nope.
in the past, and they seem to come up with a different volume as well.
We probably ought to ask the divers if they have any mathematical background or geometry, or, you know.
Could we not
Can we
just
take
measure the outside of the tank and subtract the thickness of the wall and determine the volume that way?
Well, you got an additional problem, because what are the levels of the outlet lines? Both the overflow, the lines to the other tanks, the ones at the bottom, those have all got to be measured up, and since they're underground, it's a little tough.
Why do we have to measure those? To get the
Because
volume
that-
of the tank?
Not the volume, but that's gonna come into play on when you have to set the computer program as to when things
It
happen.
measures from the top down.
It's the effective volume,
Yeah,
because you may have a 1,000,000 tank, but if the pipe's 3 foot off the ground where you're actually sucking from, it's not a 1,000,000 tank.
yeah.
You only have a certain usable
Okay.
volume of it, so.
But that should easily be determined by
The easiest way to do it without, and this would only be the depth of the tank, would be fill it to overflow, get a very accurate pressure gauge on there, and then you can calculate your head on top of it.
A 20-foot piece of PVC is a great measuring stick for depth.
But all I'm saying is
But that won't give you usable depth.
what are we doing?
Because you can use it, you empty the tank, you measure how much water's in there. You go to overflow, you measure that, and that's your effective volume of that tank.
You could do it that way.
But I mean, it's something we can do.
Yeah,
I'm
my
looking
way,
for
just
things that we
fill it
don't
up.
have to rely on somebody else. If we have 3 divers with 3 different calculations and 3 different volumes, I'm not so sure that we get the 4th guy won't have 4 different measurements and 4 different volumes, and who in, excuse my expression, hell's right? So if we go out and look at it, because it affects you and me, affects the town, we go out, then we've got somebody to say, damn it, Sidaway, you didn't measure that right. Right now, we're just saying, those guys, and it's awful hard to critique, correct, or to modify someone you don't know. Those guys don't work. It's you and me that do the deal. I'm just being
Yeah.
a pain, but
I'm
that's.
saying if you
see what
fill
I'm
it to
saying?
the overflow,
Yeah,
you could use pressure gauge to determine how many feet above that pipe you have
Yeah.
of usable.
well,
I'm just talking about getting a physical measurement from the outside,
physical
know the
measurement.
thickness of the wall.
It's
You ought
like
to get a rough
eighth grade
estimate
math,
of the,
right?
of
I
the
mean, I'm
damn
not
volume
over
of the tank.
thinking
we have-
this, right?
pretty
Eighth grade
simple.
math.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have 450,000 gallon tank and we have a 1,000,000 gallon tank. If we say that there's 425 in there and there's 450, it ain't gonna make a bunch of difference to what we're doing.
No, it's
So
not gonna
I
wait.
guess what I'm trying to say is we need someone to trust, not someone to be down to the, third decimal point on the quarter inch. That's what I'm saying.
So we have the divers scheduled, right? Yeah?
They are in the process of signing the agreement, if I remember right.
Yeah, it hasn't been scheduled yet.
Is that part of the agreement? Does it say they measure and give us the volume?
That
Yeah,
will,
it is.
Good.
That was
Well-
written up. But is it this year or is it next
This
year?
spring.
Okay. Oh, of next year,
No.
spring.
now.
It's this summer.
We are,
Oh, it
we are
will
in
be
summer.
done.
We're
Yeah.
in summertime.
Yep.
They usually want to try and schedule to do a number of towns in the same region, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what
Waiting
we're
for
waiting
it.
on, that's my understanding.
Usually it's around September.
Water's warmer.
All I'm
Water's
asking
warmer, flows drop off a little
is,
bit.
are we gonna make an effort to try to determine the volume? And you're saying it hinges totally on the divers? Is that something we can
Is this something public
find
works can do?
the perimeter of the tank and
We've got-
figure the thickness
mean-
of the wall and get a general notion?
It'd be a
of
general.
how
But if we
much the
have
tank
a
general?
What's that?
For public works, it would be in general.
Yeah.
But Dan, it would give us far more confidence in the divers if we had an estimate of what we thought it was, general. And they give us a specific.
Yeah, we're not
I
gonna
mean,
have
we don't have
guys
the engineered
general,
drawings that
so
say that
we're
it's-
gonna have to wait until September. then.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have the
Okay.
engineered drawings that say this one's X, this one's Y.
You
We don't
won't have on
anything.
those 2 old ones.
Okay.
So it's gonna be September.
Just the big one's the only one you should have engineering drawings.
Yeah, and
So is there gonna be any effort for us to try to determine the volume?
No, our guys have a lot going on, so it'll be September.
Well, when we say us, it could be this board. We gotta quit using us again. And we ought to say crew,
Well, I
crew,
just
board,
said
council.
we,
Yeah.
but yes, you're right. I don't think they're gonna allow, unless the mayor approves it, for you guys to go out.
Why not? We're not gonna get in the water. We're gonna do everything external. Does it take a
Well,
mayor's
don't you
approval
need
to do
internal a little bit to like,
it? If we can
know
drop
the
a,
thickness
if
of
we
the
can drop a,
tank?
if we can drop a PVC pipe, we probably
yeah,
have
you're
enough.
gonna have to talk to our public works and our
Yeah.
mayor for that, yeah. Or
Okay,
unless it's gonna be
I would
September.
say just write it up as a request, and that way we can talk about it at the work session next week too, as a council.
But honestly, we're gonna be put out probably a little bit, so. And September's only 3 months away,
No, it'll
so.
be past us before we know it's here. But I was just thinking of a way to get confidence in the numbers we get.
What if it makes it worse?
Huh?
What if it makes it worse?
Yeah,
Well, then but that would be good, Mayor, because then we could do a third time and use the average of the three.
yeah. What else, Lee?
the other question, it said, that the administration personnel said that it would be reviewed and updated if needed. Is that done?
What are we talking about to review?
The water emergency plan? Has that been done?
Yeah, we brought that up
Back in March?
back in March, and,
I turned in the one piece of it.
yeah. We were talking about the accuracy of the contact page, since we've had a lot of turnover.
We've had turnover since then too.
And,
And they were asking, the crew was asking for help on content, not the details of how you do it, but what are the items that should be in it.
yeah. So nobody knows
Just came and went.
if anything's,
Sorry about mine.
Okay, and then another item was water software management company search is ongoing, and Daniel was going to, or had mentioned that a good review is for the one you use. What have we done about that?
The existing contract ends this month, and a new one will be written.
With the existing,
I'm not sure which one, but I know that Trevor has been in substantial conversations with him. He was leaning toward the one you're using.
CST.
are we gonna get anything out of Jesse before the contract ends? We should, because how in the world are we gonna know if anything's better? And the worst thing to do is for it to get better and us not to know why.
Jesse supplied May and June numbers today, and my perspective, I don't think our system's set up at all right. Too many numbers are not changing.
Well, it would be better to have all that information available, so next year, when everything is working properly, we know what our improvements are and where they were. Because if too many of them are not moving, Taylor, they're gonna be exactly what they were last month and the month before and the month before.
Hopefully, when we get the new company and we're gonna go through everything and get stuff reset and make sure everything's working.
I understand, but that's from that point on, and I'm
Yeah.
saying right up to that point, our information stopped in, I'm guessing April, maybe it was March,
You got,
nothing since then.
June and July showed up today. And
Not July, I hope.
May and
July
June,
is
May and June. I was looking at it this afternoon, see if I can get it to come back up.
And we also need to have the town consumption reports sent. Huh?
I requested
Oh,
that.
good, thank
So
you.
we'll see.
You're ahead of it, you're ahead of it.
The confidence report is out, yeah. If we're through on that one, we strongly recommended, with the water crew's consent, that the town engineer be authorized to determine the accuracy of those system meters that directly feed the SCADA system. wondering whether we've had Ryan go do anything on accuracy determination. I guess my point is Steve goes to a lot of work to write our minutes, and then we approve them, and then they go into a black hole, and we never know whether there's follow-through. And so I think if it's up to us to follow up on that and ask questions, did any of those things get done, then rather than just approving them, we should go back and look at them and say, hey, did this happen? Is my suggestion.
Did we just decide to replace them?
Because Steve puts a lot of effort into these.
We're waiting for some recommendations from Ryan on the type of meters for those mainline inflows, not the residential, but the other ones.
No, just the big ones up on,
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
but we've been asking for that for what, 5 years?
There was some information provided to the administration, which was rejected totally. And did you ever get a report back on your
I
stuff?
think I did like the stuff you
Sent you?
sent me, no, I haven't gotten it.
Then let me repeat it for the record. The town was notified, the town administrator was notified that ORS, which is our, one of our water associations we're a member of, their rider has a leak detection instrument that is free for us to use. Wouldn't it be wise to use that to see if we can find some of those major leaks for free, rather than spending a lot of money on a professional leak tester? In that same memo, it was stated that you can buy somewhere between $2,000 and $15,000, and the difference in price is the accuracy. That you can take this non-invasive, portable meter reader, and you can wrap it around pipes, and you can determine what the flow is. Now, we don't need one that measures to the milliliter. We need one that measures to the tens of gallons. But if we had one of those, we could put it around all of our meters and determine, do we really need to do it or not? We got $100,000 allocated. And wouldn't it be nice to test those meters and see if it's only 3 out of the 20, or 8, or if it's 1 out of 8, or if it's 8 out of 8, then to go ahead and spend that kind of money. Now, I said that's what the price is if you go online. But if that outrider, or what they call them, not ditch rider, that's irrigation, the WARS guy.
Are you talking about, correlators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he's got an instrument that measures leaks, he may have the same portable measure for pipe flow. Or our engineer may have it. Has anybody thought about spending any time? Now, I asked that question, and I was told that I jumped the line. I did not go through all the proper channels. So I went through proper channels, and our liaison got,
Haven't got anything yet.
she got stiffed as well as the rest of us. And that's ridiculous, Mayor. If we are so formal that we can't pass good ideas on to somebody and get a feedback to say, we know about it, that's all it takes, or we don't know about it, great idea, but we're not gonna do it, I understand that. But to have us stiff because we didn't go through channels is ridiculous. Just my rant. Anyway, and if our liaison can't even get the information, who in the hell do we go to get it? Because I don't have an answer. You've got an administrator who is stiffing a councilman.
Boy, you know as well as anyone how busy things are.
No, I love that excuse, and I use it all the time. But you gotta remember, a good manager will delegate some of his work to other people, so he has time. And if he doesn't have time, delegate it to us and we'll tell him. I put a call into Zach, and he's been told he can't respond. And Zach can say yes or no. We have it, we don't. We know about it, no, we don't. We're in line. We're signed up to get it this fall, whatever. But just to have information like that, because we're talking about, Mayor, $150,000 of town money is gonna be spent for brand new leak tests and brand new, meters. And if we don't need them, we could spend it somewhere else. We're gonna spend what is it, 300,000 or $500,000 for, town meters, residential meters? And I provided our town administrator 3 months of 10-year-old information to compare with current information by meter number, so we can see if it's gradually going this way.
The average flow.
Yeah. Monthly flow is what it is, by meter. And that's 36, 38 months of data to compare against this year's if we had it all. And maybe we don't have to replace all of them. But there's good reasons to do it, but you better know what you're doing, because if we replace all those meters and nothing changes, this town just spent $1 million that it shouldn't.
Yeah, and on top of that, Boyd's calculations don't show a deterioration or an improvement or nothing. They hang at about the same efficiency throughout, which tells you maybe the meters are telling you something valid.
Let me point something out here real quick. This is off of the, what is it? This is the June 2025 report that just came in today. Looking at the Green Canyon tank. One heading says overflow total with pumps, K gallons. And that number is, hold on a second.
It helps if you can see.
Yes, it does. 1,384 K gallons. Now the next column over says overflow total without pumps. 16,372 K gallons. You tell me that reading's correct?
I hope it's not.
No, not an overflow, but we're talking about,
Well, I'm
Years
saying,
and-
how much of this can we even trust?
Well,
I
and
am so
it doesn't-
tired of hearing that.
but
If we cannot, let's fix it.
I agree,
Okay,
and that's what we're trying to get to.
well, it should already be done. Let's do it now. The guys are on it for this summer. Let's get it done.
Now, let's
I
not
am
wait
so tired of hearing the numbers are wrong and nobody can accurately determine this. Then let's fix it. Let's do it all right now. The guys should be on that already because
You
it's
are
costing everybody more
in the
money.
process of getting new people to handle this system and get it straightened around and get, so we
It
get the
shouldn't
numbers
even
right.
be a process. It should be done.
It's called contracts, Kristen.
but they're.
Yeah, and
They're gonna
contracts should be
work with
done.
what we have, not necessarily replace meters
nothing
or
wrong.
determine which ones are bad.
Something's wrong right there, I would say.
Oh, yeah, I
Well-
believe it.
Do those meters have physical totalizers on them?
I don't know. I've not physically seen any of them,
Okay.
so I can't tell you if they do.
Does anybody know?
And I've never had
That's the
anybody
report.
tell me.
Yeah, I'm just asking if they have a totalizer on there, like a
No
readout.
idea.
Yeah,
I haven't seen one.
because that's all 4 to 20 outputs right there. I mean, it's, that all has to be calibrated and correct, but the physical readouts on there should never be wrong.
Well, that's the report we just got from the guy that's handling our SCADA system now.
Yeah, but he's not here. I mean,
I know.
he's not comparing those numbers. Have we ever given those to some of the water operators to go up and actually verify?
It falls on dead ears so far. I hate to say it, but everybody's busy, and Mayor, please understand. Our job is to look at the water. And usually the squeaky wheel gets more attention than the one that isn't. And so if we don't holler and scream and ask for things, we've been asking for these meters since, I don't know when, 9 years ago. We finally got them on the budget, so.
Yeah, and now-
You're anxious to have it done this
I
year.
just want it done.
I want it
'cause
done
I'm
before,
here,
because
like,
we're
tired
too
of
busy in the
comments.
summer, and it's too late in the fall, and it's, you can't do it in the winter, and we'll do it in the spring, and then all of a sudden, because Taylor, we sat here a year ago.
I know.
And I said, and you said, we'll take care of it, we'll get her. I'm not pointing at you, I mean, that was the system. We were talking about we'd get her done, and I said, well, it's been 8 years, and you said, wait, it'll happen. Well, now we're a year and out, and everybody's got an excuse not to do it. No one has the courage to do it, and that's what you're saying.
And I would point out that we are going to enter into a new contract this month. I would point out that we've also got the money allocated to pick up the new meters as soon as we know what they are. It's a matter of just installing them. Your point was well made on the pressure going down on the tanks. We don't even know whether those pressure.
Which meters are you talking about replacing now? The homeowners meters or these other meters?
All of the meters are in the budget for 2025, 26 to be replaced. Homeowners and the tanks income and output meter.
Yeah, and somehow the homeowners
Leapfrog.
meters took precedence over what we've been asking for 5 years.
They're all in the budget.
Understand, but everything was in the budget on the homeowners, I believe from the first reading.
No.
Yeah, cause
We
we're
did-
all a mess.
we didn't-
That's the problem.
We think somebody thinks here. We're sitting there looking in the eye and saying, there are meters that are not reading correctly.
Exactly, we
Guaranteed.
don't have time
But
to
you don't know which
determine.
one it is.
Exactly, that more
No,
time
no,
would
no, wait a
cost
minute.
us more money.
Yeah, let me finish. You don't know how much. We don't know if it's $1 a person. We don't know if it's the first 10 or $10. You
I
see, we don't
understand
even know
what you're
that.
saying. But Boyd, at some point, if we reset everything with a new meter, and I understand, I don't wanna spend more money
No,
than we have to
But
either.
if we're
It makes
having
me
our
sick,
crew doesn't
but
have time to do what we're asking on these big meters.
that isn't, like, our crew, there's only what, 9 of them?
Two.
7 of them?
Two.
Well, for the water, but our other guys would like pitch in if they had to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, like, being realistic. Let's just reset everything, cause we know a lot of them need to be
Yeah.
replaced.
Let me ask you a question of our two liaisons. Do we have any kind of a PERT chart, a plan, a hours available and hours we're gonna spend? Because the problem is those
Getting
guys
them
are busting
replaced or what?
for the work crew. In other words, we got 2 guys or 9 guys out there. You do some planning, you say, this job's gonna take X hours, this is gonna take X hours, this is gonna take this X hours. And if you don't do that plan, you may end up where you need 10 people and you only got 2 people to
I
do it.
agree.
It will never get done.
Well, I asked
But
if it could all
priority.
be done
Yeah.
this summer, and I was told yes.
Well,
So-
we're older than you, and we've had this same
I
conversation for
agree,
years.
I
And that's
understand.
not pointing fingers
That
at
was
the
the
mayor or
request.
anybody.
No, it's totally
Yeah.
pointing fingers. I agree, like, I feel the same. Like, but I asked, and I was told by our admin that it would be done, and
But
I'm
our guys
expecting it.
can do anything we ask
I
them
can guarantee
within a time frame.
yeah.
See, and they may not,
I can guarantee you won't have all your meters replaced this summer.
and why
Which
not?
ones?
Which ones? The
Any
big
of
ones?
But
The
we
big
were
ones?
told they
The
would
big
be.
ones, we're still waiting for Ryan to tell us what the size and what we need. They haven't even gone out for bid yet. The residential meters are in the negotiation phase as we talk right now. The number has come in and it looks like it's gonna go down a little bit more. Once those get here,
Why
it's a
does
supply
Ryan
issue.
have to tell us the size, for example?
I don't know. I haven't gone up and measured them. I don't know what the meters are.
Okay,
I don't know what the
Enough said.
latest is.
That's what I was
We'll
told.
cut
Well,
some.
obviously, our other
You do have
liaison
one-
has
you do
so
have one
much
more
more
year, don't you?
information, so.
okay.
I have no idea.
That was,
You have another year on the.
that was my March
We'll have this
27th
discussion next year.
question, and just, I had more on the next one, which was the May 20th. But one of the things that, I'll just point to one item, that Taylor wanted the Water Utility Board to recommend to the council minimum reserve balance. Well, what I'm telling you is about 5 to 7 years ago, it was calculated to be 2.6 million. And if you look at the latest chart, we're down barely over 1 million, and half of that
But where,
is
where
the
was your
500,000
2.6
that we're
million
mandating.
recorded?
In a
Steve
report-
sent you out all of your ordinances and there is no value on there.
It's not in an ordinance, it was calculated.
What
So
was
where
recorded
is
to
it
the council.
finalized?
Didn't,
Well, I'm telling you, it was
They came-
2.6 million 5 to 7 years ago. And then inflation alone puts it over 3 million, and we're down barely over 1 million. So we're at about 1/3 of what we should be.
Let's back up a minute and say, what haven't we done in the 4 or 5 years? We haven't fixed the, line coming in to the Prater Canyon from the spring. We haven't changed all of the valves. We haven't sealed the inside of the Green Canyon tank. It can go on and on. That's what's driving your reserve numbers down. They've got to be done now because we've let them go for too long.
establishing a reserve maximum or minimum, whatever you want to call it, will not affect anything you just said. That's a budgetary decision made by councils. I'd like to add something to what Lee just said, because I've done some research and some experience on this reserve deal. And we have met with Wade and walked him through some of this, just to find out what his, because he puts everything together in one bucket and spends out the bottom. And reserves are not put together that way. That is a private business process. But a public business process or a public process is that reserves, as you know, are required, for you to make a decision and do something to spend money, you must have money, which is reserves, and you must have budget. And without those two, you're breaking the law. So when we look at give me what we should have in the future, we need to be, this is just my opinion, we need to be much more refined in what we're asking for. Because we have a system that's, some of the oldest parts in our system are still under 20 years old. The rest of it is 20 and 10 and 0. First 10 years, first 20 years of a system's life, it's almost all brand new. And you have very little replacement expense per se, meaning replacing old with new or failing with something new. So we need to make sure we're talking about the same thing, because a system reserve was for replacement and expansion. We also need to make sure that we have a second thought process. You can put the same bucket, but you can't use the same money, so that would increase the reserve, is emergency reserve, because we've already proven it. I don't remember what this thing cost us across the street. Mayor, do you remember?
It's about 200,000.
Was it 200,000 when we blew
Number
up
three.
the pump?
I don't remember.
Okay, but anyway, $200,000. That's an emergency. You didn't know it was coming, it was a blind shot, and that happened. There's a lot of things that could happen emergency-wise that needs to go in that bucket. And then, that's for the system that is in the ground. Tanks are soon to be in the ground. Then there's another reserve group you need to do, and that is for our capital, what do they call it, moving? What's the term? Mobile assets, trucks, trailers, backhoes, whatever they call it. There's a term that the county uses.
Under capital.
But that needs to be addressed, because that's short term. And you ought to be using the capital reserve for equipment as a way of saying, here's my next 2, 3, or 4 year expenditures, and what are they going? That should be separate from the other reserves.
Yes.
So
Now,
what would the
let-
road board determine is what that amount should be?
But we shouldn't determine it. We should be in charge of
No, a
gathering the
suggestion.
information.
Yeah.
We should get together, our engineer put together a master plan. And it has some of the information in it, but our engineer should be involved in the input.
Okay.
Our crew needs to be involved in telling us what's going on. Now, understand they're new, and so if you just turn to your left and look at this guy over here, We'll pretend like he's got the experience, but to help us out on that. We put the whole thing together, then we can make that recommendation. But there's not enough knowledge on this board to put a thing together. We can assemble it.
Okay,
Then
now,
why are you guys trying to tell us?
What?
what,
You already said we needed like
No,
$2.5
no,
million.
but we had somebody do it for us. We had it, I will send this
I'm
to,
so frustrated.
Mayor, did I send you that or not? I didn't.
Like, I agree.
There's
So
a report
let's
that was
do it.
put together by Terry Wilson. And I'll be.
But the 2.6 there
Was
was
the 5 year,
was
6 year or
for
something?
system replacement reserve,
But
In
not
5
capital
years ago.
expenditures, not emergency funds and that sort of stuff.
So where do you want that money to come from?
it has, the only place you can get it,
Is the enterprise fund?
it's called,
So make some money come into there and figure out how we're gonna make more money come into there.
well, you raise the rates.
There you go.
The only place you have a source of funds is the rates and the government. The government's not gonna give you money for reserves,
No,
so it's rates.
so, exactly. So that's what I'm
Which
saying.
is why we've been recommending,
What,
$2
$2?
increase?
That's not enough.
no, but over time it builds.
If you'd been doing $2 every year, we would not have enough in there, but we'd have more than we've got now.
Your finance board just told me that we shouldn't have any.
Then I would let them run it.
Guys.
system,
And they
Board told you you shouldn't have
have more,
reserves.
Yeah.
more say
No,
than we have.
No,
Raises.
more raises today.
Okay.
Yeah, like as of today.
Because they don't understand, they're looking at today's
So
expenses.
you guys need to figure out what we need to do. Like at least a suggestion. Don't sigh, it's a true
No.
thing. I
But-
need
but
a
the- but the-
suggestion.
let
as
me
a
get into
councilman.
this for just a second.
Huh?
My conversations with Wade are different than what you just ended up saying. Because a lot of conversations I've had with Wade is he wants to sit down and take a look at what it's gonna be over the next 10 years and what has to happen each year and then how we're gonna budget for it.
That's capital.
That's a replacement and everything. Your tank, the Prater Canyon Tank 1 was built in 1977. That would also be the same time that that line coming down from the spring was put in. That means we're in trouble on that line and that tank right
But you
now.
only wanted to increase 50 cents on other people that don't even have a lot. That's what I'm saying, we have to all contribute to expenses like that. Or else it's never gonna be covered by our town.
Absolutely.
At some point, we all need to be like adding up to that amount, cause it's not a little amount, it's a high amount.
Now,
And there aren't enough grants for that.
I just said I would send you a 2.6. I do not want to send it to you.
No, I wouldn't.
Because that, we cannot define until we talk to Terry and go through it. What does that represent? I can tell you it goes from 2.6 to 3.2 or
What could
something.
go even higher than that?
But that's just the CPI increase, nothing else. I don't know if he based it on the final system, the system at that time. You know, we don't know all the facts, so until we do that, we can't tell you. But we're working on it. Terry's given us a preliminary and he's been out of town.
But we do know that at the time of the calculation, it came out over $2 million. And right now, our reserves are down less, and if it's because the Financial Advisory Board said we need 0, then that makes
Well,
sense
not
why
only
it's
because of that.
disappearing.
I mean, there's
But
other
we
things
should be going
too.
for a grant for a replacement of the tank or lining of the tank.
I would recommend very strongly that when we get this all, not all put together, when we get just a little ways down the road, we invite the finance board to come in and listen to what we say and how we say it. So they understand that this isn't, we've done it, now we don't have to worry for another 35, 40, 50 years. They've
No,
got.
it should be a rolling.
Huh? Oh,
If you
yeah.
figured out 10 years, it should be rolling every year.
Once we get it done, if there is such a thing as ever getting it done, then it is easy from that point on just to add the 10th year every time and knock off the current one. Or what you did, you take out.
Especially as our loans are dropping off in
Well,
15
And
years or whatever.
but to start that, you also have to have a very robust CIP plan
Yeah.
that's in place. So that's where you have to start, is starting with a CIP plan so that you can actually calculate the financial
Impact.
obligations in the future. Because then if you take it to a financial advisor, they're gonna say, oh, you don't need any raises to the base rates
Yeah.
or anything.
Unless they-
Because they're not seeing the financial
Well, they're not
obligations in
looking
the
past the
future.
end of their nose, they're looking at it.
They're looking at numbers. They know nothing about water.
Yeah.
All they know is that the numbers that we have, they can add up and
And
Make a
divide,
match.
and divide by 12, and that's what you need.
that's what they need. That's all they need. But if you don't have a robust CIP plan that goes out 15, 20 years, and they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be specific out to that 15, 20 years. You need to be specific to 5, semi-vague to 10, and then you need to say, Prater Canyon's gonna need replaced in 15 years. Allocate
Over, like.
$5
other
million.
expenses.
You're talking about a
Give them
capital
a
improvement
ballpark,
plan.
because otherwise they can't calculate it, and then they come back with a recommendation to not raise rates.
Yeah.
But
That's
as-
what happens.
As we just said, the capital improvement plan, which is what you're talking about, needs to be generated with the help of our operators. And,
But they don't have the experience to generate it.
They're so young, they, not.
That's-
But we all
nevertheless,
know
we do
certain
have,
things that need to be done.
we do
Yes.
have, we know ages of our
Mm.
system and stuff like that. But just because something is getting old doesn't mean it automatically needs to be replaced.
Yeah, but if we have
Some
money set
systems
Not
aside, it's
necessarily. I
okay.
mean, a tank that's 50
Longer
years
than other
old,
things.
you know it's reaching the end of its lifespan.
Yeah.
Ductile iron pipe has a lifespan of 50 to 75 years. You know it's reaching the end of your lifespan. You know, the steel pipe coming down from Crater Canyon, we need an asset management plan that tracks our assets with ages and with conditions, which means we need to have an engineer, probably hire an engineering firm to come in and look at all of our mechanical assets and say, this asset is in good condition, this asset's in fair condition, this asset is in poor condition, and then we need to put it into an asset management program so that we can start to look at replacement.
But that's what we
Because-
have with Ryan. He's our representative of Forsgren, which is our engineering firm.
Yeah, but maybe we
Maybe they
need
need a
a
little
water,
direction.
yeah, an actual water engineer. I mean, nothing against Fosgren, he knows our whole water system, but,
But he
I mean,
has-
he's also doing our roads, he has a lot going on.
No, but remember, he represents Forsgren Engineering.
Well, that too.
And they have all kinds of water engineers, they have all kinds of road engineers.
Yep.
His
So they
job,
may
his
have
job
somebody else.
is like your job, liaison.
Yeah,
And he's supposed to carry that back to his headquarters, and if he's not doing that, then we ought to be on his butt.
at least somebody
But at
to
the same
assess.
time, he's only gonna do what you ask him to do.
Absolutely,
If we are
absolutely.
not requesting that, then it's not gonna get done.
He doesn't do it on his own.
Well,
So,
he did.
I mean, we don't even have an accurate map of all the water lines in the town, all the valves.
For sure.
I mean, that's something that somebody needs to work on.
Like a
It should have been
forensic
developed as they
water
were putting it
assessor.
in.
Absolutely, now it's gonna be hell.
It is gonna be very difficult,
So,
but,
I just can't believe, I have to agree with you.
But-
Because we had an engineer in the hole and we had a water operator in the hole with one purpose in mind. Map that sucker, because when we started, we had 4 and 5 lines going down the same road. One was Stewart's and one was ours and one was an old Stewart, and one was an old ours, and the fifth one, nobody knew who in the hell owned it. And they would go up and have to tap them to see if there was any water in them. And as soon as we broke the line, there was water in it. So we were so adamant about having plans as built, not as desired or designed. And I just can't believe that we don't. Somebody should have been fired, probably.
so
fired.
I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We have to kind of step back to the basics. We have to step back and start developing a CIP and asset management plan and some sort of, because then we can build up, because we're trying to build backwards.
Yeah,
and it's not
we
working.
can't start with the answer
we
and guess and
have
put it
a
together.
master plan. Ryan developed it
Yeah.
and presented it last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago,
Yeah.
further.
But it was an isolated master plan. It wasn't a water plan in my mind.
Well,
It was
I mean, it was
to
a-
solve the
It
problem.
dealt
It's a
with
start.
From his perspective, and yes, it was a lot smaller than
It
its
dealt
scope.
with the issue
but-
of EPA on the Green Canyon tank,
Yep.
period.
The fact that we had to replace the tank, what are our options? And he called it a master plan. But it's better than not having anything.
But he also took a number generated in July of 21 that said this is our maximum daily usage number. And based on that, I can tell you at full build up, you need another couple pumps and another couple tanks and whatnot, and that number was more than likely flawed to begin with. And yet, that's what was generated from our engineering company.
Mathematically, the system was designed for full build-up. And with the proper sources, adequate sources, you'd say, adequate storage and usage, average usage. We were using about almost 9,000 gallons per month per connection. And when as soon as we put the meters on, it dropped to about 80. And it's oscillated between 75 and 80 for the last 10 years.
75 to 80% of that 9,000, is that what
No,
you're saying?
7,500 and 8,000.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, just about in that area.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with meters. It has to do with, did we get rain in the spring? Did we get rain in the fall? Or was it a hot one or a dry one? Was it a long summer or a short summer? That's the thing that affects the average use. And COVID blew us out of the water because everybody came back early. But the average usage didn't change. The amount of usage changed, but not the average.
But we don't charge the amount of usage. That's what I'm saying. The whole way
Oh, we
we
do.
charge as a water system, oh my gosh, what,
Well, no,
0.022%?
If you
It's a whole
take-
thing.
if you
It
take
all
every-
needs to be assessed correctly.
well, if you
It's a
look at
problem.
other people and they say, well, they're a lot less than us, but they charge more for usage. But if you looked at our average usage and applied their base fee and their usage against our base fee and that on a total amount received,
Oh, no.
oh, yes.
You are so off
It should just be
compared to
per
other
gallon.
places.
Yeah, well,
Compared to other places, we are way off.
okay.
We're like way overcharging.
And I can show you other places where,
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're overcharging in places we shouldn't be and way undercharging in places that actually make us money as a town. That's what I'm saying. And people wouldn't even bat an eye because they're spending that in water. They already know what they're using in water.
and when you start charging higher rates per gallon, you'll notice more and more brown yards.
No,
Guaranteed.
you take what you pay for whatever you're putting into your yard. So let's say it's 10 grand. We're gonna charge you that no matter what, if you're between 5 and 10. We're gonna still charge you for 10. So you're gonna keep your water or your lawn watered, and then we're just gonna charge you for that. That's the
Talk
thing.
about
We're
tiered rates.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, why wouldn't you? In a place, if you wanna keep it watered, which to some extent, we're right up against the forest, we should be encouraging people to keep things watered.
Yep.
But, that being said, our water system right now doesn't do that. We are so missing where we could actually make money, and
So
people
what-
wouldn't bat an
What
eye.
would you change? You change the rate per gallon?
Yeah.
And what would you change it to?
Well, I have it all written down, I can send it to you.
Would you? Please.
Yeah, I mean, I made it years ago because this has been an ongoing thing. You look at your water bill, it's the same thing every time. It doesn't even, well, and beyond that, I already said my meter lots to non-meter lots, they should also be like charged something for keeping
Let me
our
give you just a bit.
capital up.
Yeah, a bit of background. When we were started out with rates, because nobody had, everything was free.
I understand.
Till we came along. And we said, what are our fixed costs gonna be? What are our variable rates costs gonna be? We said, we will charge the base fee based on our fixed costs.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start charging more for water just to cover fixed costs, and people become more conservative, you raise the rates again, they become more conservative, you raise the rates again, they become more, you still never catch up. So you've got to look at what's fixed, what you have to cover every month or every year. That's gotta be in the base fee. There's very little we've got that's variable. Almost everything we got is fixed, and that's the reason you have a very low water rate, because, or at least we think it is.
I was
Some people
gonna say,
think
it's
it's rural.
not for the whole state, but I'll give you that, okay?
That's the reason we did it.
Okay.
Right or wrong, that's why we did it. And it worked out, we could.
But I'm just saying, now we're kicking ourselves because we
Oh,
have
excuse me, was that you?
things. No, you're not, you're fine. I'm used to it, boy, you're good. But I'm just saying, we have other things to pay for. You guys are complaining about certain things that all this money is going out. Well, all this money needs to go out. We have stuff we have to pay for. So let's find a way to get it into. Beyond just what you guys are looking at, like, we're doing this and we did that. Well, now we're at where we're at and we're lacking.
Well, we used to have a
I-
10-year plan that we had our rates
Okay,
were based
well,
on
now
a
we
10-year
don't,
plan.
so let's
And that
figure it
was-
out.
that
And
was
you
when
guys
the-
should get with Wade.
That's when the
because
finance company took over. and
Wade
said
is
they
just
could do
going
it
by what he knows from other things, because
From
you can tell
private
that by our
business.
rates.
From private.
Our rate increase right now is something.
Yep,
So I
I
would
agree.
appreciate you guys like contributing to that in a positive way. In some way, because you're complaining about the cost, you're complaining about, we're putting all this money out for getting these new,
I
like,
just
meters.
don't want you
These are
putting
necessary
that
too.
money out if it doesn't need to be. And
Well-
nobody can stand up and say, believe what Taylor said. Those numbers are so far out. We wouldn't even need to measure that, replace it. But we got 4 major inputs. It's called 3 wells and a spring. And somebody keeps telling me the spring is not being measured correctly. Let's go up and measure the meter, and make sure it is, so we can get off this kick of saying it's accurate or it's not. And if it's not accurate, replace it. But if it's not accurate, if it is accurate, and it's measuring correctly, why replace it?
I hear you.
That's all I'm saying.
No,
And
you've
we've
been
got so
waiting on
much
those
money.
numbers forever, Boyd. Let's just reset the meter and know.
Well, I mean.
That's where I'm at.
That's
Like,
one way to do
let's
it.
just do the meters.
I came from business where profit was really
Oh,
important.
no, yeah, I understand. I own my own business. I understand.
And we ought to be.
But at
that-
this point, if you can't get one way or the other, let's just replace them, which we've already budgeted
While
for.
you're doing it, do it.
It's already done.
I
So
give.
let's get those. But
Just do it.
once we get them,
But
let's,
don't
where
do
do you
it next
guys
year,
go from
Taylor.
that?
Don't let them get away with that. That's bull.
I'd love to have them in as soon as possible. We've gotta figure out what we're ordering.
What
We
has
gotta
our
get the bids.
engineer told us? When is he gonna respond?
I have no idea.
Did we
I'm
ask
not-
him to respond by the 1st of July?
He has been asked to respond. I have no idea what the deadline date is. I was not involved in those conversations.
Okay. Well, we gotta start asking people to do something and then say,
Set a deadline.
and by this date.
Yep, I
So
agree.
that we know what we're doing, because we can sit here and argue forever, but if the guys aren't doing it,
Yep.
or don't know they're supposed to be doing it, that's even worse.
And I will point at the town council on that, because in a lot of stuff that we've done, given to Ryan, we have not set a deadline.
Yeah, we have. In the last 3 years, we have. Because that was part of my problem.
One that I know.
I like Ryan, nothing against him at all, but we requested that multiple times. So if our mayor didn't follow through on that, that's not my problem as a town councilman. Because yes, the town council actually did request that. In the last year and a half, I remember specifically asking that. That's why Ryan doesn't really like me, because I was the one who said, let's do this. Let's make him have a timeline. And then it was still 6 months later. So, no, the town council isn't at fault for that. We have requested that multiple times.
What
So
are we
let's,
requesting that we haven't requested?
Deadlines for reports from Ryan.
Oh, and what reports?
Specifically is
We're
the
talking about
size,
in the
the
last 2
size
years.
of the meters for the major size meters, big ones.
The,
Water, the flow meters.
From the pumps.
what kind of meters, or the flows, what are we?
Size,
Types.
Size and type.
Okay, yeah,
They need to know what to order.
right, so well, then, we're still waiting on that.
But some of the
So ours-
problems is that stuff's gotta And then still a year wait on them?
There's lead times on everything.
Since we're talking about Ryan,
that
has
size.
he
But we
ever
haven't
gotten
requested it yet,
number
so.
3 well
Yeah,
approved for
we haven't
1,000
started.
That's
gallon a
still in
minute?
process as well, he's done his part, and we're waiting, so,
So it's still not approved for 1,000 gallon a minute
no,
pump?
I mean, he's done what he needs to do, and we're just waiting for that
For the state.
state engineer's office or whoever makes that approval.
And when it goes to the state, don't hold your breath.
Well, I would like
Yeah,
to
it's
make a
been backed up
motion
for a while
that we approve the minutes as written.
We have a
You
second.
lost control of this meeting, Steve.
Do we have a second?
Thanks for that.
All in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
As amended and written?
Aye.
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 Well, we're not very far down the agenda here.
No, we're not,
And it's important to have these discussions.
because we gotta
Yes.
get out of here.
Thank you, Lee, for bringing up those follow-up items.
And I think, as an addendum, we should review and ask questions of our liaison. Was this done, especially if it was aimed at them?
Yeah, now, does the water board know about the pumps in Green Canyon, the transfer pumps?
What about them?
They can't be replaced again. There are no parts,
Oh.
cannot be replaced.
They're obsolete.
They are totally
And we
obsolete.
bought 4 of them just so we'd have an extra one.
So what
So
pumps
we
are
have
these?
4 obsolete.
The transfer pumps from Green Canyon to Prater Canyon.
Okay.
What, is it just a matter of changing the brand and the model number?
From what I have been told, it's gonna be more complicated than that because of the way the electric motors come down onto the pumps and the spacing where they
Yeah.
bolt in.
It's all different.
now.
Well, thank you, sir, for that great piece of information.
We have one spare in case something goes wrong, but who knows how long it's gonna hold.
Yeah.
How many are there?
So do we have a plan to replace them one at a time?
Not at this point.
Do we know if we can replace them one at a time, or is it like our meters, all or nothing?
That I can't answer either.
We should probably have that piece of information.
It
should
would
be able to
good
replace
have
them one at a
Ryan here.
You'd think so.
if he's the one
It's
telling
just
us.
The only
matching
hangup,
flows and total dynamic head
Yeah, you're
output, so it
turning it
shouldn't
on,
be.
you're turning it off.
Yeah,
I mean, that's really,
but they should run in, concert with each other, so you just have to match flows and total dynamic head.
and
The
it
pump doesn't care.
would also tie into the control system, right?
You have to tie into the
That's-
control system, but that's all IO controls. and-
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's all standard protocol on that, from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, are they VFDs? They're all on VFDs?
Are they what?
variable. I don't think they're variable.
Oh, VFDs, did you say?
Yeah.
No, not those.
I think those are on and off,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
So just
Boy,
kinda
can
like-
you get the, that estimate for our reserves from Terry Wilson?
Yeah,
That's
If
our
not-
plan.
I've
nothing
got-
else, we can use it as a template to
Yeah.
update it.
I've got the answer, I don't have the process to get there, and that's what I'm working on, is getting that.
Okay.
Lee and I are both working on that with Terry, to get the details so that when we give it to you, you know what you got. And not just somebody that says, well, that's all you ever said.
Yeah.
Cause unless we tell you, you can't know, so,
No, no,
but I
I'm
will, I think we can have that by next year meeting, don't you?
I think so.
We should have that for our next meeting, we can present that to the board.
Okay. For those who don't know, Terry Wilson, he was on the water board, and he's a water engineer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's owned his own business.
And,
And 3 of the last 4 Wyoming Water Development have been his employees, former employees.
and so he offers his services for free, at least since he was on the board. But since then, I imagine it's more difficult to.
Let me ask Dan a question. Dan, do you have ready access? Now, I know you don't, but I mean, how much time would it take to take a water system, not ours, a water system, and say, average life of this item is this long, this one is this long, and this is long, and be on a general basis, not right down to the valve deal, but, valves, pressure reducing valves should last X,
Yeah,
is that easily available? Is that somewhere we can look up, or you could look up and?
yeah, that's easily available. Basically, AWWA has most standards for all of that.
Oh, do they?
How long valves should last, how long pumps should last, how long, and they go all the way down to how often you should change the turbine fluid in your vertical turbine pumps,
Well, I
and
don't-
how
don't-
often you
yeah.
should grease things.
Don't get so deep that we.
No, but that's how deep we need to
Yeah.
get, because if we have all new water operators, when's the last time, I don't know, are all 3 wells vertical turbine, or are they submersibles?
Submersibles.
Put down in the-
They're submersibles.
All of them.
That limits the maintenance, but those don't last as long as a vertical turbine. Submersibles last about 15 to 20 years, depending, you know, you can get them last as long as 25, but that's pretty much pushing it.
Sure.
Your windings start to get wet, seals go bad, they're submerged the entire time.
Let me ask
So,
you a related question, Dan. On the submersible pump, if the pump has not been turned on, for what period of time do we have to worry about it?
you don't have to worry about it in terms of it running dry. You never have to worry about even a vertical turbine, because the actual pump housing on a vertical turbine is below the water line.
Okay, because we've got one pump that hasn't been turned on for over a year.
The nice part about when you run the pumps, they do like to be run, is it burns off any moisture that gets in there, even if it's just a slight amount of moisture. It's not
Do
great
you know
for them to
why
sit
it's
for a long
not
time.
been run? Has anybody ever told you why they haven't? turned
Yeah,
it?
because it doesn't have a chlorinator on it.
Doesn't matter, you can turn the damn thing on and run the water down the ditch.
As far as I know, it has not been turned on.
That's what my
You're
first thing.
Well, technically, we're not chlorinating right now, so what's the holdup?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't know.
We can actually run it to the system.
But if it hasn't run for a year, you're gonna have to flush it pretty darn good, I would expect.
I would run it to discharge for a while.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
But somebody ought to be said, turn the damn thing on, cause if we got a problem up at the spring, folks, we gotta use pumps.
Yep.
And if we're not prepared to have a backup pump for 2 other pumps, then we're really hanging out on a dry.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just saying.
No, I'm
These
with
are the kinds of things that we have not been doing.
Yeah.
But another factor on pump life, it's how much particulate is in the medium that you're pumping, and that all impacts pump life.
yeah,
And
normally
line
the
life
pump
and
life is
everything.
longer than the motor life. The motor usually goes before the pump
Oh,
does.
is that right?
Normally.
Yeah, but the motor's up on top, that should be simple.
Or,
Motor's not, because it's submersible. If it's a
The
submersible
motor's
pump.
up on top. the
So they're
pump's
vertical
down.
turbines.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know, the motor's up, the motor's dry,
those are vertical
We got
turbine
long-
pumps.
long-
Submersibles are
it's not a
with the
submersible.
motor
motor's
and
down
the
in the
pump.
hole.
Yes,
I think all of ours are, what, the first one, with the motor up on top.
vertical turbine.
Vertical
Well, then
turbines.
normally those vertical turbine, motors last in excess of 30 years if you treat them right.
Sure.
They may need to be rebuilt.
Well, we rebuilt this one over here because it was getting a 30-year life to it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it was,
But how often is the oil getting changed in those? How often is the lower bearings getting greased? How long?
Good question.
How often are the packings getting adjusted? I mean,
That
that's how
should be
detailed
part
we
of
need
the
to get.
protocol of maintenance.
Correct.
And you saw the 15-page operations manual. Yeah.
didn't have it in there, did it? Nope.
No,
I'm
that-
sorry, this is a private meeting, would you get your ass out of here?
It's public meeting,
But
actually,
anyway,
sir.
But I will have the Terry report to you. Could you
Okay.
give us, next time, seriously, bring us a sheet that's just kind of generic? Or
Yeah,
tell me
I
where
can
to
get
go
you
get.
some sort of generic sheet for
To
most
get us
common
started,
machinery.
because we need to get everybody on a visual that we've got 100 years on this, 80 on this, 60 on this. I want really general, nothing really detailed. I don't want you to waste your time.
Yeah.
But something to give us a visual that these are the things we ought to start digging into first.
So who did you say had that information?
AWBA, American Water Works Association.
American Water Works?
Yeah, they'll have,
Not the rural one.
AWBA is just a little more detailed. They
They'll
do have
use-
a lot of
they'll
it.
Is
use-
it available online?
But it is available online. Their, I think their maintenance,
Is there any way
like
you
general
can get
maintenance
any
book's like
information?
$130. It's like
Yeah.
700 pages.
Don't.
It deals with
Don't wait patiently.
everything from rebuilding valves. So it's very in-depth.
Would that be worth?
It would definitely be worth something to have for them to reference.
He could have answered yes or no.
It's called their
no,
maintenance
no.
manual.
I can look it up. I don't.
All right, have we-
Put the recommendation in. How to create budgets.
Thank you for trying.
I'm
You know,
trying.
with new people.
It's just frustrating.
They better have
to
something.
People ask
It's
a question, get
$150
assistance.
is cheaper than what people, they better have something. to
Yeah.
I get that a
purchase.
lot.
And I understand
So it's
too.
just called the maintenance manual.
I don't know, I will look it up and
Would
I'll
you
send it.
look it up and get us that information
And I
so we
assume
can,
that's something that
I'll get it.
is consistent
Okay,
with
thank
what Wade wanted,
Yeah.
which was roughly a 10-year
Yeah,
vision of capital expenditures that he's basically asked the water
All I'm
board
trying
to
to do is get
present.
this thing honed
Or
down
to
to a sizable
develop.
deal that we can manage. If we try to do the whole thing at once, we'll never make it. We've got to say what's the closest in, what's the most important, and focus, and then we,
put that 10-year up on capital improvement first. That's where I see you've got the most critical pieces.
capital improvement for this one is pretty well defined.
Well,
It'd be nice to have your input too, and your input as to what you think is on that, because you've had discussions outside this board, with the council that have brought up projects.
Yeah.
Whether you liked it or not, or whether we can afford it or not, or whether it's due or not, we ought to know what it is. So that we take everything into consideration in our recommendation.
I don't know about Taylor, but I feel like a lot of those things are less than 10 years,
Yeah.
like away.
And so that would be for us to understand what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the worst thing we can do is make a recommendation, and somebody say, well, did you forget about the tank? Yes. You know, the obvious.
Yeah.
Okay,
By the way,
are we on to new business now?
I was gonna say, by the way,
for the next 5 minutes.
Trevor has indicated that he has gotten approval from the Forest Service to do maintenance on the Crater Canyon Road.
Was that a one-time approval, or was it
It's
for?
one time right now, but they are, hold on, we are waiting for the final approval to put it into the 20-year contract.
So
we
that
know
we
we're
have access,
in perpetuity.
we shouldn't have to go to them every damn time we want to go up there.
You'll still probably have to notify.
Yeah, but don't ask, I mean, we can say we're doing it, and they can say, thank you. Yeah. But right now, we gotta get on our knees and beg and.
Yeah. Because we did do some work on it last week.
Didn't mean to interrupt, sorry. You wanna get on to new business, or you're?
Well, we've talked about reserves and managing them with minimum balances. We'll talk about that. We said we would develop that number. And funding is kind of a different issue. I mean, that's strictly rates.
Well, we gotta know
And
what it
if-
is before you do it, though.
Yeah, if we develop that reserve number and get buy-in and, or what we recommend, then I guess it would be up to the council to determine how they're gonna fund it. And then there's this issue of ordinance clarity. You send out the ordinances that we were gonna look at, talk about. What did you have in mind there, Steve? So, talks about the reserves, withdrawal authorization, sinking
Well, we've got
fund.
one, the first one is called a sinking fund.
Yeah,
And basically, all of these could be called sinking funds by the definition.
But the WWDC call it a sinking fund, so we call it a sinking fund.
Yeah, that's the one that
Well, I
we're
would-
stuck with because of the contract, right?
Yep, the $500,000.
Yep.
I would probably change the name of that to lender-required sinking fund. So it just makes it clearer for everyone that,
Well, we spent
Reads it.
so much time the last time we renamed them, and then nobody knew what it was.
Alert just came out from the town, water will be turned off tomorrow from 9 AM till for several hours from Ridgecrest Drive, from Alpine Way to Canyon Pines.
And that's for that new line.
That's, somebody hit the line earlier today up there.
Oh, is that
Did
one?
they
Is
lose
that the
total
same
water
one?
pressure out there?
Pardon?
Did they lose total water pressure?
I don't know.
Our neighbor, I wasn't home, but our neighbor said it.
Below 20 PSI?
It said it's got to a dribble.
Well, I barely had a trickle.
No showers.
Yeah, I
A glass of water, but no shower.
so what did you have in mind, Steve, on this ordinance? Are we supposed to
um,
review it?
It meets,
Recommend
it says,
changes?
it's classified as a committed fund, but it really meets the requirements for a restricted fund.
Our auditors used it restricted up until this last year,
Yeah.
or
And,
year, 2 years, I guess.
and then on the loan repayment reserve, it's defined as service availability fee and an equal portion of the water base fees. We may have to change the ordinance if we're going to, that says that people that don't have a developed lot, are going to pay their portion of the loan repayment. If we're going to start preparing for future projects, we may have to change that ordinance
Yeah.
to include not only
Expand it.
so,
In reading it, I've been a little concerned about the changes that were made the last 2, 3 years, making it easier for a broader interpretation for the use of it. I would recommend that the council, when we get down that point, we recommend the council restrict it even more. It's not for you. You and I understand what you're gonna use it for. But when you're gone, the next person comes and says, I don't wanna use it for that, I don't wanna use it for this, so let's change it. And we can't do that.
Yeah.
We've got to set it down where it's black and white for everybody to read, and I agree, understand, and when you're all gone and we're all gone, a person can read it and say, I can only use it for that.
We're still paying.
Unless I go through the process of changing the ordinance, which then the public has the opportunity 3 times to know that you're changing it.
Another thing is, I think on the budget and everywhere else, it's all grouped into one fund.
Yeah, I can't.
And I really think we ought to recommend that if they can keep it in the same bank account, but we ought to have a number for each fund.
Yeah.
And it ought to be balanced monthly to what came in and what went out.
Yeah, and we ought to see it, the board ought to see it.
And we ought to
Because if
see
we
that.
see it, you'll see it, as a council.
Now, Wade, is, in July, you're gonna start seeing a monthly running on the town budget as to what came in, what it's expense, where we are compared to what we budgeted right on out. So you see a major change in that.
It's good.
Okay,
Used to be that way, so glad to see us getting back there.
Yep.
Because you always go back and want to see what happened, and if you can't, if it's not there to start with, you have a really hard time.
I agree.
and there's some other things that we'll have to cover in another meeting, but Lee, I know you asked some questions about how decisions are made by the water crew, and we didn't have a representative in that meeting. And so I was wondering if you could make an appointment with the water crew to where the board could go to their offices and let them demonstrate how they make decisions, how they take actions and why they take actions, and maybe get all of and our next meeting is the 29th, and I was just wondering at their convenience,
In the next month.
if within, before the 29th, if we could get an appointment to go see their operations.
It's like you asked
Yeah,
us
we'd
for
like to see
information, we
their
like to ask
logic,
them.
why they turn
Those
pumps
guys are
on,
good
why
with
they
it, though.
don't.
Yeah.
They're good.
That sort of stuff, yeah.
And as new as they are, it'd be interesting to have a fresh view of how they're doing things too.
And
Yeah.
certainly not adversarial or nothing, it's just,
No, you're there to
maybe we
listen.
can get some information to them as well as them
And I don't
to
know if-
us.
That's
be
for a
available
meeting.
to be
They're gonna
there to help us out.
give you-
It'd be hard, during the week, during work hours.
Yeah, but you
And it's
probably,
gotta be during the week, during the work
I
hours
know.
for them.
yeah.
Do you
Well, they're
work
on
4
it.
days or 5 days?
5.
5.
They're on a 10-4, right? So they don't work on Friday, so they're here till 6.
Oh, okay,
Oh, true.
yeah.
So we could do something,
That way, when we can't become boisterous and keep talking, they'll leave because they're on the time clock. Don't invite
So
the
do
mayor.
you just want them to see like what they can show you with their numbers per
No,
day?
just
or
how
what
they
do
do
you-
things,
Their
the
logic.
process. How do you make a decision you need a new truck or a new
Oh, that's gonna
part
take a
to-
lot.
No,
Okay, let's narrow
more how
it
they-
down.
How they use their software to control the system.
Okay,
Yeah,
Right.
That would be good too.
Yeah, it's not how to buy trucks and that. It's-
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's how, what
What do you-
makes them trigger to do a manual interface where they, instead of letting the system control it, where they manually turn something on, what,
And I know you're working with them
what's the
on a lot of the
logic?
decisions, but,
Well,
that they go
that
through
whole
to do
thing
that.
needs to be rethought,
yeah,
because I'm not sure the settings that are in the system now are even reasonable.
Guaranteed.
Right. And
Well, why aren't
that's what we
fixing
need to
those?
know.
I'm not sure what you're saying right now.
Let's
Like-
just say I walked into an office once, a year ago, and said, hey, what's the overflow on the Prater Canyon tank doing? Well, it's turned off. Is it turned off? Somebody types in on the computer, oh, it's on, I'll turn it off. And didn't tell anybody else what was changed.
Yeah, so
That's
that's
a change
been
to the
going on for a
system.
couple of years. Why isn't that policy in place? I'm not understanding why that is happening still.
Cause there's no experience.
Well, you
I
have,
hope
you have
not.
turnover in people.
I hope
Yeah.
not. No, that's
And-
still not an excuse.
No.
If people aren't writing something down, nobody knows. That's why
That's
the
right.
new
That's right.
guy
We don't
should be
know.
able to look at a policy or something.
One of the problems, and I think Dan will back me up, is on any system up here, one person should have overall control. People below them can do certain things, look at it, maybe change one valve or something else. We're not set up that way, and we won't be set up that way until we change over to the new system.
yeah.
But the
Because we
logic
can't
should,
get it
You
out of
guys
Jesse.
can just-
the logic should be all written down.
Agreed.
That says when you, right now, it feels like to, what we're hearing is when they leave at 6, they wanna have Prater tank up to the brim. And maybe they should have it down
Agreed.
Then we
5 feet down so that the spring can fill the tank during the off hours.
Yeah,
We have a.
those are the questions
system
we wanna ask.
Exactly.
Triggers
Exactly.
the automatic, when the well, when the tank gets to a certain level, it says turn on a pump.
I don't know if we know.
We do-
That's the
well,
sad thing. I don't know.
But
He
it's-
just said, like, we don't
yeah.
really have that.
It's.
In
you can-
policy or
You can look
anything.
at the data and it's about 2 feet down or so. Those parameters were set when we didn't even have a fire hydrant in town. It was set before we had $1 million or a $500,000 gallon tank sitting up on the hill. We needed to make sure we had both, user consumption and fire protection. Now, we don't need those tanks for fire
That was
protection.
like 15 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, that's
But
why
also
I'm just
because
Because
like,
we
I
can turn a pump
can't.
on
at
and
this
keep
point.
up with our fire
Those
suppression.
parameters have probably been changed over the years too.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
On
Well,
a-
they need
on a
to be
whim.
changed seasonally, because, you
Yes.
know, your
You got more
drawdown
people.
and your turnover, all of that needs changed
And,
seasonally.
and,
So
and,
it's
and our,
accurate.
and our spring goes up
Right,
and down.
but people,
Um,
well, no, so people are on it, right? So they recognize when they need to adjust and know.
the problem
I
is
think
it comes
that's
with
common.
experience, and it comes with knowledge,
Well,
and that's the biggest thing is,
so
if
if
we
we
don't
don't
have
have
it, we need to develop it.
Maybe like a policy of some sort to help guide some of these guys,
So
okay.
during the summer,
You
you know,
guys
maybe
not
new
have a
tanks.
manual of procedures?
But,
Well, I
And
mean,
this
that's-
has nothing to do with the
in
guys we
almost
have,
every other
like, they are on it, I feel like they're
bureaucracy, that's what
really
they
on
have.
it, trying.
Yeah,
That way, 'cause-
they have
But
no
at
guidance.
this point,
They have no guidance.
but they have priorities too.
We have
And
an
need to make sure
operations,
what we
water
do
system operations manual
you know,
that is written so generically you couldn't tell,
It's worthless.
Well,
what.
Yeah, there's nothing to
what
tell
they do.
them how to operate the system.
No, it doesn't have
And
any
that's
of
what
if
that.
we're relying on
Any
the
of that
employee
information.
experience to
Yes.
guide,
It's gonna have to be developed.
and that
It's not
employee
something to go by.
leaves,
Okay.
they
Very specific
inherently
to
take
our
the
system.
experience with them. So you need an operations manual in order to capture the experience, and it should be updated regularly. Even if the update means no change.
the,
Right.
the,
Go
That's okay.
in periodically and look at it and say, gee, maybe we ought to change this or that.
at
the
least to know our
discussion is
system.
not, do we
But
need
then
one
a
now?
new
The
employee
discussion is
can
why
come
don't
in
we
if
have
they
one?
don't know, they can look at the manual and say, oh, this is what I need to do and here's how to do it.
Yeah.
Is it time, Steve?
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. So moved.
You got 3 seconds.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night, gentlemen
Thank
You
you.
too.
and ladies. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.